This is Tar Heel Talk, an in-depth look at the issues and people making news in North Carolina. Here's your host, Sonia Williams.
On today's show, we take a look at the life and work of a Raleigh entrepreneur who overcame hardship and transcended racial boundaries to create a successful business. Willie Odie Kay was an African-American clothing designer who held an esteemed clientele in the segregated South. Some of her incredible work is currently on display at the North Carolina Museum of History in an exhibit entitled Made Especially for You by Willie Kay. And joining me now are the curators for the exhibit, Diana Bell-Kite and Earl Imes. Thank you both so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Now, Willie Odie Kay was a fashion icon of her time. Before we talk about her beautiful dresses, let's first talk a little bit about Willie Kay, the woman, and the long life and legacy that she had here in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Well, Willie Kay came from a prominent family here in Raleigh, the Henry Gaston and the Henry Odie family. They grew up in Cabarrus Street here in Raleigh, and had a fairly prominent early life as a child born in 1894, and she married Dr. Kay of Wilmington and later moved to Wilmington, North Carolina. And unfortunately, Dr. Kay had an early death in 1927, and she moved back to Raleigh, where she began sewing dresses to earn a living. Mm-hmm. And her genius design started then, but she learned it through her family lines.
Right, and I understand that she graduated from Shaw University.
Yes, from Shaw University, right. And she's an early graduate, and that's where she met her husband, who graduated from Leonard Medical School there at Shaw, and moved to Wilmington to establish the community hospital there that later became the New Hanover County Health Center there today.
Right. And I know that Dr. Kay died before he was even 40 years old, and that left Willie Kay to raise 5 children. And as you said, so she moved back to Raleigh and started this dressmaking business to help feed her family, to help take care of her children, raise her children.
That's right. She had always been talented with needle and thread. Her maternal grandmother lived with the family when they were growing up, and she was a skilled seamstress, and Willie and her sisters learned from her grandmother and their mother how to sew. And she later said that it always surprised her mother that when her mother would make clothing for her and her sisters, young Willie could copy the clothes for her dolls and make little miniature versions for her dolls. And then when she went to Shaw, she majored in home economics and won the 1912 university-wide dressmaking competition. So she had always throughout her life been very good at being able to look at something and just make it. She had this innate talent to just be able to, she never used commercial patterns, anything like that, just, you know.
Which is amazing.
Right, right. So when she did face this tragedy in 1927 when her husband died and she was the sole supporter of their 5 young children, she moved back to Raleigh where she had family, where she had grown up, and decided this is something I'm good at and this is what I'm going to do. And so that's sort of how it all started.
Well, let's take a look at some of the pieces. I know that they're going to be on, well, some of them are on display at the Museum of History. Right. Let's take a look at some of the pieces, and you kind of tell us about the masterpieces that we're looking at.
Okay. This is a dress that she made in the 1960s, 1964, I believe, for her daughter, June Kay Campbell, to wear to her granddaughter, Mildred Campbell's debutante ball. Beautiful red cotton velvet dress. Here we have a peach dress with the signature rosettes that she put on a lot of her garments that she made. This was made as a mother of the groom dress for a wedding in 1959.
Beautiful. I want to go back to the red dress for just a minute, because that looks like something that you could easily go into a bridal store now and see.
It's really timeless.
It's beautiful.
And to make it even more versatile, she actually made two versions of the dress. So she has the sort of bolero jacket over bodice, and then she has a cocktail length dress that goes with it, and also the long evening dress, so you have two different looks.
And you mentioned that she made this for her daughter,
That's right.
June Campbell, and of course in Raleigh and really across the state of North Carolina, the Campbell family is well known. Ralph Campbell, who is Miss Willie Kay's grandson,
That is correct.
was our first
Statewide elected officer in North Carolina, and he served as our state auditor from 1992 through 2000. And we began to acquire some of the dresses during the time frame when he served as state auditor from one of our former curators, Miss Louise Benner, back in the early and mid-90s.
And so the Campbell family, the Kay family, and the Odie family have a very rich history here in North Carolina. That and the work that Willie Kay did is a very much an important part of that history.
It is, and the work that she did not only catered to the community of color, but obviously the work transcends, and the quality and the genius transcends race, and was in high demand. And when we interview, and when you come to the exhibit, you can see interviews of some of the family and the customers who she served, and talking about their experiences going to the house. And particularly what's interesting is to hear the experiences of some of the family members during the civil rights era, when Raleigh was being integrated, and the threats against their family caused them to leave the Campbell household and go to Willie Odie Kay's house for a sanctuary.
For safety,
Yes.
absolutely, because she was loved by everyone. And I think that was an important part of the work that she was doing, particularly during that time, a very segregated Raleigh, North Carolina, a segregated South, a segregated country. Diana, talk a little bit about the variety of clientele that she served.
She really had, she made dresses for black clients, she made dresses for white clients. Every year she would make a set number of dresses for both the Alpha Kappa Alpha debutante ball and the North Carolina debutante ball, one being predominantly African American, one being predominantly white, because she thought that was fair, that was the right thing to do. And so her father had been a very successful barber. He had owned his own barber shop. And when she went into the dressmaking business, her father catered to a white clientele. His barber shop was in the Yarborough House Hotel, which was Raleigh's grandest hotel at the time. And he knew a lot of the businessmen, politicians, that sort of group of people. And when she started dressmaking, he would tell his clients, oh, if your wives and daughters ever need any dresses made, my daughter is starting a business. And so that's how that she really started building that clientele. But soon, you know, because of how good her work was, her popularity just really took off statewide, even beyond North Carolina, both among black and white clients.
And you can see some of her work on display at the North Carolina Museum of History now up through September 5th. So there's plenty of opportunities to go by and see that. For more information on the exhibit, you can go to the North Carolina Museum of History's website, ncmuseumofhistory.org, and certainly find out more details about Willie Kay and some of the work that she's done and the dresses that will be on display. We're going to take a break and we'll talk more in just a minute. All right. We'll be back with more on the work of Willie Kay after these messages. For more than 6 decades, Willie Odie Kay transformed dreams into dresses for generations of North Carolina brides, debutantes, and partygoers. this esteemed Raleigh designer overcame hardship and transcended racial boundaries and was in such demand that even prominent socialites worked around her schedule. Mrs. K also is a grandmother of former state auditor, the late Ralph Campbell Jr., who was the first black person elected to statewide political office here in North Carolina. With us again to tell us more about the life and the legacy of Miss Willie K are the curators of the exhibit, Diana Kite Bell and Earl Imes, both with the North Carolina Museum of History. So much history connected with Mrs. Willie K and her family. The dresses are just a part of that, but they're an important part. So I want to see a little bit more we have some more pictures of some of her pieces that, as you mentioned before, are timeless. This is absolutely gorgeous. Something I could see myself wearing to a formal event today.
This is a second nightgown that she made for Louise Wooten, who is a lady who still lives here in Raleigh today. And the second nightgown, the idea is that you have your debut, you go to your debutante ball, you wear your debutante gown, and then there are a variety of other functions associated with the coming out. And the second night there would be a ball, and you would need a gown to wear to that as well. So for this family, Willie K made both the debutante gown and the second nightgown.
And her clientele included a lot of dignitaries, if you will, across the state of North Carolina, governors' wives, mayors' wives. So she worked with with a variety of people.
She really did. She worked with a variety of people, and she had the kind of personality. And we both talked to so many people about Willie K, and everyone has said that she was very calm, the kind of personality that could just really put you at ease, was very gentle, no stress. I mean, the perfect personality for being able to work with brides, debutantes, elite folks who are used to, maybe getting their way. And she just had a way of being able to put, frayed nerves at ease and say, it's going to be all right. We're going to design your gown, and it's going to be just the way you want it to be.
And the right personality and temperament to work with a variety of people during a time when racial tensions were at an all-time high.
Well, it is because, again, the time frame of the 60s when integration and the civil rights movement, particularly here in Raleigh, was going on, and Ralph Campbell Jr. and Sr. and their family were integrating the Raleigh schools and literally having their lives threatened and things along that line, and they would leave their home to go to Willie K's home, and according to them, she was very calm and cool, collected person who was able to calm everyone's nerves, and her home was that sanctuary where you wouldn't know that was going on outside of the doors, and she never really spoke of it to them or lent credence to that the terror that they were suffering under during the civil rights movement here in Raleigh. She never really acknowledged it within her home, and allowed for that to become a sanctuary for the family during that volatile period, particularly around 1960.
And just the fact that her home would be considered a sanctuary and a safe place during a time of racial tensions and where there was a lot of violence speaks volumes about her personality and just the way she was viewed in the community.
Right, and like one of her grandsons commented, talking to him, that during the day she would have elite white society and black society coming in and out to be fitted for dresses, and at nighttime she was sheltering the civil rights family. So just really this interesting juxtaposition in what was going on in her day-to-day life and how she maintained her signature cool and calm through all of it.
And I understand that she was always invited to the debutante balls, which was primarily for white families, but they insisted that she attend to see the gowns that she made.
Right, to see, and I believe she attended both the African American AKA
absolutely.
debutante ball and the North Carolina debutante ball until she got into her later years when she wasn't able to get out as much. But yes, she would attend and see her dresses in their full glory being presented along with the the young ladies wearing them.
I know that she also made a lot of wedding dresses, and I know that you brought along a picture of an absolutely stunning
Yes.
wedding gown that she made.
She made this for her granddaughter, Mildred Campbell. And the dress actually started its life in 1964. Willie O.D. Kay's sister, who was also an accomplished dressmaker, Mildred O.D. Taylor, made her grandniece and namesake's debutante gown. Then when Mildred Campbell got married 5 years later, Willie Kay made her wedding gown, but took the lace off of the earlier debutante gown to put to use on the wedding gown. So a lot of family history wrapped up into this one dress.
And that picture, you can't see all of the intricate details in
No.
that picture, but I can only imagine how much work went into that. And you said that she never used any commercial patterns, which is
No.
absolutely amazing.
You know, each dress was designed especially for you, especially for the client who commissioned it. And so the client would come, and she and the client would sit down and they would discuss what type of dress the client wanted, and then they would work up a drawing or a plan, and she would execute it.
And I think I read somewhere that she never shared the
No.
patterns or the ideas of one dress or design of one
Never.
dress with another client. So nobody ever knew who was wearing what. And
No, that was very important to her, to be very discreet, because she wanted the dress to make its debut when it made its debut, not prior to the wedding or prior to the ball. That was a very important. She had a cedar closet in her home that her son built for her under the stairs, and that's where she kept all the dresses, and no clients were allowed to look in there. She would put them away and then bring one out when that client came for a fitting.
And her sisters, as you mentioned, were
Yes.
also accomplished seamstress and worked with her. We're going to take a break, and we're going to talk more about the sisters. You have some great stories about the sisters that we see there when we come back from this break. Don't go away. Tar Heel Talk will continue after these messages. Welcome back to Tar Heel Talk. I'm Sonia Williams. Today we're looking at the life and the work of a Raleigh entrepreneur who overcame hardship and transcended racial boundaries to create a successful business. Willie O.D. Kay was an African-American clothing designer who held an esteemed clientele in the segregated South. Some of her incredible pieces are currently on display at the North Carolina Museum of History in an exhibit entitled Made Especially for You by Willie Kay. And with us again are the curators, Diana Bell Kite and Earl Imes. They are both with the North Carolina Museum of History. And we've been talking about just the wonderful work and really the legacy of Willie O.D. Kay and the significance of her being able to work with both white families and black families at a time when all of North Carolina, all of the South, and most of the country was very much segregated. Earl, talk a little bit about, as we look forward to this exhibit and have younger generations coming to take a look at the work, talk a little bit about the significance of the work and really the life that Willie Kay led.
Well, in particular, we hope that youngsters and people who are not so young who come by and have a look at the exhibit can really understand and appreciate the genius of the artistry, and not only of Willie O.D. Kay, her sisters as well, who all collectively and collaboratively work together. And the way that they were able to go about their business and service the Raleigh community and our state in general underscores they're nothing more than a social fabric of the community. And the white community, the community of color, felt at ease and comfortable interacting, and I would imagine in many instances integrated in her household while she serviced each individual client. And so a lesson from humanity more than anything from Willie O.D. Kay during the struggle for civil rights for everyone. She treated everyone equally, respected everyone equally, and in turn, she and her family were treated equally. And I think it comes from not only the hard work and dedication, the genius, but the genuine care and attention that she gave to everyone that was made especially for them by her.
Absolutely. And you mentioned she worked alongside her sisters. We have a photograph of her and her sisters, and they really did work very closely together to make some incredible dresses.
She and her sister, Elizabeth Odie Constant, she did a lot of the beadwork and the embellishments on the gowns that Willie Kay made. And if you come to the exhibit to see the dresses, one of the hallmarks of the gowns is the elaborate beadwork. And each gown has beautiful, beautiful beadwork. Lace applique. It's just really stunning. And a lot of that was done by her sister, Elizabeth Odie Constant. Another sister, Mildred Odie Taylor, was also an accomplished dressmaker in her own right. She had her own business here in Raleigh, her own very loyal clientele as well. Chloe Odie Gervais Laws, another of their sisters, also did dressmaking. And then Josephine Odie Hayes, who lived in New Jersey, was not as, not as plugged in, of course, to the Raleigh scene since she was up there, but she sewed children's clothes, so also very involved in making clothing. So
Truly a family business.
yes, it was a skill that they all inherited, learned. They were all very skilled at.
We have a photograph of Willie Odie Kay that was taken by the News and Observer with one of her pieces. Just truly an icon in the community. I believe that photo was probably taken in the 80s, I believe.
93, I think it was.
93? Okay.
Yes.
81.
Or the photo itself.
And so we see here her with an incredibly beautiful dress. And the photo, it's difficult to see that, just that intricate work, and you were talking about the lace and the bead work that is included from a photograph, so people really need to go to and see the exhibit firsthand.
Yes.
But really just outstanding work at a time where the resources were limited and just didn't have access to all the things that we have today.
She would buy a lot of her fabric at Belk's downtown on Fayetteville Street. She didn't drive, so she would take the bus downtown, place orders and for large quantities of satin and other materials she needed. Sometimes she would order materials from New York if she couldn't get access to them here. But just really making beautiful work out of what she could pull together.
And many of her dresses have become family heirlooms, been passed down for generations.
They have, and that's been, I've talked to so many former clients who have either she made their debutante gown first and then later altered it to make it into a wedding gown, and then altered it for someone else to wear as a wedding gown and debutante gown. One family, 6 different women had worn the same wedding gown. It's not uncommon, 3 or 4 different women wear the same wedding gown because of the quality of the work, because it becomes an heirloom. To have a Willie Kay is really something special indeed.
Right. And I can imagine, as you were putting together this exhibit and just interviewing some of her former clients, you probably got a great picture of just what a dynamic personality she was.
Well, one of the best stories of the interviews, I recall one of her grandchildren saying about the only thing that she couldn't do was to run the thread through the needle, and that he used his young eyes to do that. So that's Edwin Campbell, I think it is, who, and you'll see that in the interview. We have an audio-visual touchscreen where those interviews can be seen, and that's one of the really fun ones.
And this exhibit, made especially for you by Willie Kay, will be on display at the Museum of History until September 5th. It's from now until September 5th. People can go by and see that, and they can certainly contact the museum, ncmuseumofhistory.org, for more information. 919-807-7900 is also another way to contact you. But what an incredible exhibit. I talked with Ralph Campbell, the late Ralph Campbell Jr., before he passed away, and he had great things to say about his grandmother and the work that she did. And thank you for putting this exhibit together and for sharing that work with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
That's it for this week's Tar Heel Talk. To comment on this or other episodes of the show, send us a message on our Facebook page or an email to tarheeltalk@fox50.com. I'm Sonia Williams. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again next week.